Revenge with Karen.
You sent balloons to the investor call, Gregory? I asked, blinking like a hostage seeing daylight for the first time in weeks. Balloons? He spun around in his Herman Miller chair like a kid high on Red Bull and ego. It's called mood elevation, Susan. People like optimism. Vibes matter. Right, because nothing says competent leadership like a grown man screaming Q3 numbers, while helium balloons branded with his initials bobbed behind him like lost dreams. That was Tuesday. By Friday, our main client, a billion-dollar whale we'd spent 6 years reeling in, had ghosted us mid-negotiation. No warning, no reason. Just dropped off the Zoom and never came back. I watched Gregory scramble through Slack messages and analytics dashboards like a drunk trying to file his taxes. He kept muttering, they loved the pitch, they loved the pitch. But the only thing they loved was seeing the exit button. He didn't ask what went wrong. He didn't need to. He already had his scapegoat, me. Susan, 48 years old, divorced, prefers spreadsheets to people and silence to small talk. I don't lean in, calculate load-bearing structures, and build the damn walls while the rest of the execs play musical chairs with buzzwords. And Gregory, our CEO, a PowerPoint warlord with a crypto addiction and the moral spine of a wet graham cracker. His job title should have been Chief Announcement Officer. He loved press releases more than payroll. And every time he screwed something up, it was suddenly an internal realignment opportunity. Translation. Susan, get the mop. Been with the company 6 years. Not one promotion, not one official acknowledgement, but every major turnaround, every saved contract, every crisis dodged by the skin of our sanity. Yeah, that was me. But I didn't need the spotlight. I didn't even want it. I just wanted the place to function. Until the chairman pulled me aside after Gregory's helium-fueled quarterly flop. Susan, he said quietly, like he was telling me a bomb had been mailed to the office. Start keeping better records. Full audit trail, your eyes only. He didn't say why, didn't have to. I'd seen the gaps, the forged sign-offs, the budget leaks no one wanted to acknowledge. And now the chairman had noticed too. So I nodded, went back to my desk, and started the folder. The folder that would one day detonate beneath Gregory's $200 haircut like a landmine, hidden under LinkedIn endorsements. And speaking of explosions, be amazed how many people tune into these stories without ever hitting that little red subscribe button. Go on, click it. It's free. Takes 1 second. Helps the team keep uncorking these spicy little tales from corporate America's underbelly. Throw in a like while you're at it, because nothing fuels revenge like analytics. Anyway, that was the moment the switch flipped, moment I stopped playing janitor for someone else's circus and started archiving every clown's entrance and exit. I kept my voice calm, my emails dry, but I watched, and I noted, and I backed up everything. Gregory didn't notice. He was too busy beta testing his AI-generated podcast intro and pitching NFT incentives to clients who just wanted their damn dashboards to load properly. By the end of the month, restructured half the executive team, fired the only 2 directors who dared question his budgeting math, promoted his Pilates instructor to director of wellness culture, said it would optimize retention. Retention of what, Gregory? Our sanity? Our will to live? I didn't ask. I just smiled, nodded, and moved him to BCC on every critical email chain. He didn't even notice. He thought BCC stood for Brand Cohesion Chat, but under the calm surface, I was building the case. Pattern matching his spending sprees, documenting every time he signed off on contracts without review. And oh, the ghost contractors, those were the cherry on top. 6-figure payouts to firms with no websites, no staff, no deliverables, just P.O. boxes and PDFs signed with Comic Sans. I brought it all home every night on a flash drive I wore like a rosary. My dog started recognizing the beep of the scanner app. Every time I opened it, she'd sigh and crawl under the kitchen table. She knew Mom was in war mode. What Gregory didn't know and would never suspect is that the chairman had already seen my first draft. He didn't say much, just 1 sentence. Let me know when it's airtight. So I did, for weeks, while Gregory ran his little kingdom like a startup with CTE. And the whole time, I kept smiling, because I knew the day was coming. The day when Gregory would storm into a boardroom, all red-faced and righteous, and scream the wrong thing at the wrong person. And I'd be waiting, binder in hand. The email hit my inbox at 6:12 a.m., time-stamped with the brutal precision of a man who eats portfolio managers for breakfast. Subject line, Clarification Request Series B Financials. It was from Randall Kirk, kind of investor who makes grown CEOs flinch and analysts cry into their cappuccinos. The man once pulled out of a $90 million round because a pitch deck had two different fonts. And now he was asking why the projected EBITDA looked like it was sketched by a toddler with a sugar high. I read the message twice, then a third time. There it was, quiet, sharp, buried between pleasantries like a scalpel under a napkin. Please confirm whether the figures reflect actual vendor payments or forecasted estimates as of July 31. We've identified a variance exceeding acceptable thresholds. Translation: we caught you cooking the books. Wanna try again, sunshine? I forwarded it to Gregory. 10 minutes later, he replied with one word: handle, no punctuation, no context, just handle, like he was ordering DoorDash, not dodging federal oversight. That afternoon, marched into our operations sink like nothing had happened, and immediately started swinging blame like a toddler with a foam bat. These discrepancies are coming from mid-level reporting, he announced, scanning the room for someone, anyone, to wear the shame. His gaze didn't land on me. I was too far behind the curtain in his mind to be dangerous. Just Susan, the fixer, the good little machine humming quietly in the background, but I wasn't humming. I was listening, because what Gregory didn't realize, what none of them realized, is that the data trail runs both ways. And when you dig deep enough, past the shiny dashboards and emoji-stuffed Slack channels, you start hitting bones. I started pulling vendor logs that week, cross-referenced invoices with wire confirmations. Noticed dates didn't match. Noticed names didn't match. Then there was the curious case of a consulting firm that billed us $72,000 over 3 months for visioning support. No emails, no deliverables, just a recurring line item and a signature that looked suspiciously like our CFO's, only with worse handwriting. I wasn't just annoyed anymore. I was angry. Not the hot, shouty kind of angry. The kind that simmers low and slow in your gut like a crock-pot full of bad faith. Kind that keeps you up at 2 a.m. thinking, do I burn this whole thing down or do I bury it with me? Because here's the truth no one likes to admit. I used to believe in this place. Maybe not in Gregory, but in the mission. In the scrappy little ops team I trained from nothing. In the late nights we pulled to meet impossible deadlines. I believed in people. But now I was starting to believe I'd been conned. I pinged a contact I hadn't spoken to in a year. Not HR, not finance. Legal, you still handle corporate compliance? I typed, still drowning in it. Why? They replied, no reason, just curious what defines gross negligence in executive sign-off procedures. The typing bubbles appeared, then stopped. Then appeared again. You okay? I didn't answer. Instead, I added a new tab to the master spreadsheet, timeline, every signature, every approval, every shift in narrative we'd sold to the board. And let me tell you, once you start mapping Gregory's decisions against actual outcomes, the man looks less like a visionary and more like a drunk squirrel on a trampoline. Every time our numbers dipped, he invented a new vertical: health tech, fintech, dog tech. Yes, that was real. He pitched wearable collars that track your dog's serotonin, called it positive feedback. I was still piecing together the ghost vendors when an analyst I trusted flagged a redacted budget line. This doesn't look right, she whispered in the hallway. It's got no owner, and it's recurring. The amount, $19,300 a month. Description, strategic outreach alignment. No contacts, no invoice attachments, just the same signature again. Sloppy, panicked. That night I went home and opened the folder again. The one the chairman told me to keep tight and personal. I copied over everything I'd gathered, each inconsistency, each lie, each laughable justification stamped with Gregory's stupid motivational email footers. Lead louder. Think bigger, email later. It was no longer about covering bases. It was about survival, because the rot wasn't just Gregory anymore. It was spreading fast, and I was starting to realize, if this thing crashed, I'd be the one buried in the rubble while Gregory parachuted out on a golden kite woven from stock options and gaslighting. I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't allowed to let that happen. And if I had to turn the whole damn C-suite into collateral damage to keep my name clean, then so be it. The first clue was the meeting that never made it to my calendar. Every Monday at 10 o'clock sharp, we had strategic alignment, fancy name for Gregory's weekly ego parade, where he'd toss around phrases like synergistic leverage and platform-adjacent innovation, while I quietly documented which department was on fire this week. Except this Monday, My invite was missing. I didn't panic. I didn't even raise an eyebrow. I just checked the attendee list. My name wasn't there. But his yoga instructor turned chief culture officer was. It was the VP of Biz Dev who thought CRM stood for Customer Rainbow Magic. I waited. Sometimes invites glitch. But the next week, same thing. And this time, a Slack message from Gregory himself sealed the deal. Hey Susan, focusing more on tactical execution now. Looping you into special projects. Should be fun. Fun. That's what he called exile. Special projects turned out to be code for clean out this digital broom closet full of abandoned initiatives and don't touch anything important. Dead contracts, postmortem decks, one-pagers from 2019 labeled disruption plan. It was like being assigned to babysit a landfill. No one said it out loud, but the message was clear. I was being iced, repositioned, stripped of visibility. The only reason you do that to someone like me is because you're afraid they've seen too much. Gregory wasn't subtle. He started showing up to board prep meetings without me, presenting my data like he minded himself. He deleted my comments from internal planning docs. And then he sent out a company-wide memo thanking the strategy team for a successful Q4 roadmap, which I'd written alone while he was golfing in Scottsdale. Still, I didn't flinch. Want me invisible, Greg? Great. Invisible people don't get watched, and invisible people get a lot done. I kept compiling the binder. Every buried invoice, every duplicate payment, every campaign that went live without compliance review. The deeper I dug, the louder the rot screamed. Gregory hadn't just been reckless, he'd been deliberate. Padding performance metrics with user acquisition numbers pulled from internal test accounts, shuffling real contractor payments through shell entities with names like Bright Sphere Insights and Novo Strategic Group, which, as it turned out, were just Gregory's former frat buddies with Gmail addresses and a Canva logo. One document nearly stopped my heart. A procurement form, signed by our COO, approving a $280,000 platform integration with a company that didn't exist in our vendor registry. I Googled the domain, redirected to a Squarespace splash page that read, "Coming soon." I checked the signature metadata. The COO hadn't signed it. It was forged, sloppy too. The digital trail showed it was copy-pasted from an older PDF. Timestamps didn't match. The approval came after the invoice had been paid. It wasn't just negligence anymore. It was fraud. And suddenly I wasn't just covering my ass, I was sitting on a live grenade. One false move. I wouldn't just be complicit, I'd be indicted. That night, I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey and stared at the open folder on my dining room table. Tabbed, indexed, color-coded. This thing had more receipts than a divorce lawyer in Beverly Hills. I couldn't walk away now, I was too far in. If Gregory fell, he'd try to drag me with him and he'd smile while doing it. And yet, part of me felt calm, focused. I wasn't flailing. I was moving, methodically, precisely, like flipping breakers in a dark room until the truth lit up. My dog, Bailey, curled up beside me inside. She always did that when I got like this, when my eyes locked into something I wasn't ready to let go of. I scratched behind her ears and whispered, "Almost done, girl," because I was. A few more documents. A few more gaps filled. Then I'd hand it off to someone with the power to do what needed to be done. The chairman hadn't spoken to me in 2 weeks, not directly. But every once in a while, I'd catch him glancing at me across the atrium with this look. Not suspicion, not concern, expectation. He was waiting, watching. And when I was ready, he'd be there. But Gregory was watching too. He didn't know what I had, but he knew I had something. You could see it in the way he lingered outside my glass-walled office. The way he smiled too tightly now. He was trying to decide whether I was salvageable or dangerous. I didn't care. Let him guess. Let him think this was still his company, his game, his board. Because soon enough, I'd remind him that the queen moves in all directions, and I was done playing pawn. I got the HR meeting request at 4:03 p.m. on a Wednesday, which is corporate code for we want you rattled and cornered before your brain has time to mount a defense. Subject line was as vague as it was menacing. Quick touch-based professional conduct inquiry. I stared at it for 10 full seconds, then closed my laptop. I didn't need to read the rest. I'd seen this play before. When they start using phrases like inquiry, it means the wolves are sniffing the air. Someone was moving against me, and I already had a guess who had teeth. Sure enough, the next morning I'm in HR's low-lit purgatory of beige walls and diffused tension, sitting across from Marla, the kind of HR rep who uses circle back as both a noun and a threat. She smiled like we were about to chat about my PTO balance, then slid a manila folder across the table like it was radioactive. We received an anonymous complaint regarding conduct unbecoming of a senior operations executive, she said, like she was reading from a microwave manual. Unbecoming, I repeated flatly. That's a strong word for someone who's never raised her voice, missed a deadline, or expensed so much as a gas station granola bar. Marla blinked. The nature of the concern involves improper communications with board-level stakeholders outside of established reporting lines. There it was, not even bothering to name names, just floating the accusation like a fart in an elevator, sour and inescapable. They were trying to nail me for disloyalty, daring to talk to the chairman without Gregory's royal permission. For doing exactly what he asked me to do, I said nothing, just nodded once. HR hates when you don't panic. Back at my desk, I found a yellow sticky note on my monitor. No name, just a scribbled message. They're trying to pin it all on you. Talk to me. It was from Samira, junior analyst. Fresh out of grad school, still thought spreadsheets were romantic. She was sharp, though, faster than most, and dangerously observant. I found her down in the analytics bullpen where the /C was permanently broken and the coffee machine screamed like a dying cat. They were writing the project ownership logs, she whispered. Stuff you handled is suddenly under other people's names. Old invoices are getting recoded. It's not subtle. Who's doing it? She shook her head. Couldn't see. But I traced one login to Greg's EA, of course. Marla's puppet, woman who once tried to calendar Synergy Hour. I thanked Samira and told her to back up everything she had off-network. She nodded like a soldier given marching orders. That afternoon, I got a calendar ping from the chairman's office. Subject line, review session. No agenda, no context. Just a time, a location, and a small surgical disruption to the week's routine. I brought the binder. I didn't bother with a bag or a laptop. Just the binder. Black, heavy, marked with a small silver label, internal SR. When I entered his office, the chairman didn't offer pleasantries, didn't offer coffee, just pointed to the seat across from his. I sat down, set the binder on the table between us, unsnapped the latches. This is everything, I said, every contract, every forged approval, every cooked KPI, the shell vendors, the invoices, the cover-ups, it's all in there. He flipped open the front cover, skimmed the first tabbed section, financial irregularities Q2, Q4, and let out a breath that sounded like defeat wrapped in confirmation. He didn't ask questions, just kept turning pages like they were pages in a funeral program. Then he looked up and said one line, "Be ready for Friday." I swallowed. Am I being fired? If you were, I wouldn't have let you in. He stood up, meeting over. I walked out of that room colder than when I entered. Friday. That was 2 days away. 2 days to finish whatever backup I hadn't already logged. 2 days to clear my name in silence, or watch it get shredded in real time by men who'd never even spell-checked their own resumes. I went home that night and sat in the dark for an hour, letting Bailey snore gently beside me. I didn't open the binder, didn't double-check it, because there was nothing left to add. This wasn't about fighting anymore. This was about surviving the reveal. If Friday was the execution, then I damn well planned to bring the guillotine. Friday morning hit like a thunderclap. Not metaphorically, I mean, there was an actual storm over downtown, thunder cracking like the universe was throwing shade. Fitting, felt biblical. I wore black. My calendar said Q2 emergency budget realignment, but I wasn't fooled. Nothing says ambush like a last-minute all-hands, with no agenda and half the C-suite, suddenly unavailable for eye contact. By 8:55 a.m., I was seated at the long obsidian conference table, Gregory's favorite power prop. He once called it a symbol of alignment and decisiveness. To me, it looked like a tombstone for accountability. Gregory was already pacing, sweating, his jaw clenched like a man trying to chew through regret and pride at the same time. Board filtered in, 6 of them, not a whisper among them. Phones face down, expressions locked. The chairman entered last, said nothing, sat at the head. Then Gregory launched into his tantrum. "She's been going over my head," he barked, slapping the table so hard the glass water pitcher rattled, coordinating with the board behind my back, acting like she's in charge of internal compliance. This is a blatant power grab. He turned to me like he expected me to cry, or maybe shrivel into dust. "She needs to go," he growled. Now, I didn't blink. Instead, I reached into the canvas bag beside me and pulled out the binder. The same black one, no logo, no label, just wait, history, proof. I slid it across the table to the chairman. Gregory scoffed. Really? What is that, your diary? The chairman didn't speak. He flipped the cover. Read the first page. The air went still. No one reached for coffee. No one checked their phone. Even Gregory froze, as if some part of him finally sensed the shift in gravity. The chairman closed the binder, looked directly at Gregory. Thank you for attending, he said. Calm, precise. Then, without inflection, like he was directing traffic, he added, please take a seat. Not at that table. Gregory blinked. What? The chairman didn't repeat himself. The silence stretched long enough to watch Gregory's reality fracture behind his eyes, his brain catching up to the fact that this wasn't his boardroom anymore. Not today. One of the board members cleared her throat. Another tapped his pen deliberately. These were people Gregory had wined and dined, pitched and promised. Now they wouldn't even make eye contact. A security badge pinged at the door. A compliance officer entered and handed the chairman a separate folder, thin, red-stamped, legal. The kind that carries weight even before it's opened. Gregory didn't sit, just stood there, red-faced and sputtering. This is insubordination, he snapped at me, though the bite was gone. You think you're some kind of hero? I looked at him. Just looked, no smile, no venom. Because that's what kills men like Gregory, not rage, not revenge. Irrelevance. One board member finally broke the silence. We'll take this from here, Greg. His name, no title, no deference, just Greg. He opened his mouth, closed it, turned to leave, paused at the door like he might have one last jab, one final shred of dignity to hurl over his shoulder. But then he saw it, the chairman leaning forward, opening the binder again, already past the first section. Already deeper in. Gregory left without a word, and just like that, the power shifted. I didn't gloat. I didn't move. I sat there as the room rearranged itself, not physically, but structurally. The people who used to look past me now looked to me. My seat wasn't at the head of the table, but it might as well have been. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't feel like I was holding the company together. I felt like I was holding the match. They walked Gregory out at 9:27 a.m. No dramatics, no yelling, just 2 internal security officers and the slow, humiliating cadence of footsteps hitting tile like a metronome of failure. He didn't fight it, didn't even ask to speak. Just looked back once through the glass wall as the boardroom door clicked shut behind him, his kingdom reduced to silence and posture. The board didn't adjourn, they pivoted. Miss Raines, please stay, the chairman said, barely lifting his gaze from the binder. The others followed suit, one adjusting glasses, another already scribbling notes in the margin of my exhibit tabs. Someone pushed the speakerphone toward me. Legal was joining. I stayed in that chair for 6 straight hours, asked about vendors, timeline gaps, the COO's signature. I walked them through it like a surgeon retracing each incision. Calm, clean, precise. A few times I caught the CFO staring at me, not with anger, not with respect, with fear. Internal audit kicked off at 1:12 p.m. I know because my inbox lit up with confirmation pings, inquiry sent department heads, access requested vendor reconciliation logs. It was like watching dominoes fall in every direction. Audit didn't just want documents. They wanted names. I gave them names. By 4 o'clock, someone in marketing forwarded me a screenshot of Slack. Wait, Susan was reporting to the chairman. Beneath it, the replies came in waves. She knew. I thought she was on special projects. Is she interim now or? Remember when Greg made her do those quarterly decks alone? Yikes. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Machine had started turning. And this time, it wasn't powered by Greg's smoke and mirrors. It was powered by receipts, real ones, and my name was suddenly synonymous with truth. It was a strange calm being seen. Not praised, not celebrated, just acknowledged. For 6 years, I was the scaffolding no one noticed until the building groaned. Now every person who'd ever dismissed my caution, skipped my review cycles, passed me over in favor of louder mouths was replaying every meeting we ever sat through. I stayed late, well past the point where the janitors started avoiding eye contact. Every time someone passed my door, they moved slower, like they weren't sure whether to thank me or fear me. By 8:45 p.m., my office lights were the only ones still on. I sat alone in the quiet, the binder closed in front of me, my laptop open to one tab, my resignation draft. It had been sitting there for 2 months. Titled simply Exit Plan Clean Copy. I hovered over it. Read the first line. To whom it may concern, please accept this letter as formal notice. Then I hit delete. Line by line, word by word, I erased every syllable of surrender I'd ever written. I didn't even archive it. I wiped it. Because the woman who wrote that draft, one who thought dignity meant leaving quietly while men like Gregory collected bonuses for her labor, she was gone. In her place was someone the board now referred to as Miss Raines. Someone who no longer waited for the seat at the table. Someone who now set the table. I shut my laptop, slid the binder back into my bag, and as I stood to leave, I passed Gregory's old corner office. Empty now. Stripped, just a ghost of power and a chair still warm with bad decisions. I paused at the threshold, looked inside, then turned away. Let the next chapter start where the last one ended on my terms. Monday came in quiet, no fanfare, no balloons, no Gregory stomping through the office quoting LinkedIn influencers like scripture. Just a plain all-staff email from the chairman, timestamped 7:02 a.m. Subject line, Leadership Transition Update. New interim CEO was a man named Warren. Mid-50s. Quiet. Ivy League name dropper, but the kind who actually went to those schools. Word was he'd led 3 turnarounds in the past decade. Not flashy, not cruel, just efficient. I wasn't mentioned in the email. No titles, no footnotes, no thanks. And yet by 9:00 a.m., there were 7 Slack messages waiting for me. Hey, Susan, who owns reporting cycles now? Quick clarification. Did this go through you before Warren sees it? Are we still using your deck template for board prep? Susan, just CCing you to keep alignment. Everyone reported to me anyway. Warren called me into his office just after lunch. No pomp, just a quiet knock on my glass door and a half smile that said, I know who's really in charge here. I've read your binder, he said, closing the door behind me. All of it, he nodded. Twice. I'd like to ask a favor. I waited. Can you train me, he said simply, on how this place actually works? I blinked. You want a crash course in operational triage? He smiled faintly. I want the truth. I don't care how ugly it is. I can't lead unless I know what we're really sitting on. That was the moment I made peace with the role I hadn't asked for. I'll do it, I said, but I'm not staying long. He didn't argue, just nodded like he already knew. Maybe he did. I gave him the roadmap. I walked him through every broken pipeline, every ghosted contract, every team starving under Greg's golden parachute budgeting. I showed him where the skeletons were buried and who still had dirt under their nails. I even drew a literal flowchart titled The Bullshit Loop, a visual diagram of how ideas died between marketing and product before ever touching real users. And here's the thing, he listened. No interruptions, no corrections, no defensive actually mansplaining. Just silence and a legal pad filling with notes. The next day I was back in the leadership meetings. Only now no one talked over me. No one laughed when I used terms like process integrity or systems-level failure. They took notes. They nodded. Someone actually typed as I spoke. And when I said that won't work, here's why, no one asked me to rephrase it more constructively. Something had shifted. Not just the org chart. The air, I wasn't fighting to be heard. I was the room. Later that week, the chairman called me into his office again. Same chair, same tone, but this time he slid a new folder across the table. Inside was a blank job description, literally. The paper just said, design the company you'd want to work for. No title, no constraints, no salary cap, just freedom and accountability. You can stay. Rebuild this from the inside, he said, or walk away. Knowing you saved it, I closed the folder, looked at him. I don't need a title to fix what's broken. I just need autonomy. He nodded. You have it. As I walked out, I passed Warren in the hallway. He gave me a small nod of respect, like a man stepping aside for gravity. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't an operator reacting to chaos. I was shaping the future. Quietly, without applause, without permission. It wasn't power in the traditional sense. It was something far more dangerous, clarity. I started with the vendors. Always do. You want to see what a company really values? Follow the money, not the budgets they announce, the invoices they bury, the pilot projects no one talks about but everyone approves. Gregory had signed off on 37 external vendor contracts over his last 18 months. 22 were legit. 12 were performative. The last 3, they weren't even businesses. First was Brand Flex Consulting. Billed us $11,000 a month for competitive perception optimization. I called the number on the invoice. A man answered with yo. No name, no greeting, just yo. The second, OptiSolve Group, had a website made entirely in Wix and listed no staff, no address, and a contact form that redirected to a Yahoo email address. The third, my personal favorite, was Strategic Leverage Solutions, which claimed to provide value-based revenue modeling. Its EIN matched a dormant LLC in New Jersey owned by a former fraternity brother of Gregory's. No deliverables, just monthly payments and a signed scope of work that included the phrase vibes-based forecasting. All 3 contracts, terminated. I didn't call meetings, didn't ask permission. Just clicked the red cancel buttons in our procurement system, documented the justifications, reallocated $417,000 in yearly spend to the places that actually made this company run: client success, engineering, internal tools. Within a week, I got an email from Regina in support. Subject: you have no idea what this means, body. We've been duct taping this system with chewing gum for 2 years. Just got word our backlog is cleared for funding. Susan, thank you. 1 day later, engineering manager stopped me in the hallway, said, "Is it true? We can finally upgrade our QA automation?" I nodded. He actually fist pumped, like we just landed a spacecraft on Mars. And then came the client. Old account. Enterprise level. Worth $4.2 million annually. Had gone quiet under Gregory, probably tired of being pitched NFT partnerships when they just wanted uptime guarantees. Mail came at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday. From the CTO. Subject: thank you, body. We almost pulled out last quarter. The silence, the instability, it wasn't sustainable. But someone's clearly steering again. It shows. Please don't leave. I stared at that message longer than I should have, because for once it wasn't about me patching leaks or keeping fires from spreading. It was about fixing the foundation. Quietly, permanently. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was rebuilding, and not everyone liked that. On Friday, a VP from the old regime tried to push through a marketing initiative that reeked of legacy fluff, 6 figures for branding strategy summit with one of the former ghost vendors under a new name. I flagged the memo, replied once out of scope, misaligned with restructuring priorities. An hour later, I got a snide Slack message from him. You know you don't technically have veto power, right? I didn't reply. I just forwarded the entire email chain, including his backdated PO request, to legal with a single line. Potential breach of vendor policy. Please advise. By the end of the day, he'd pulled the request, and Marketing Summit disappeared from the planning calendar. No blowback, no tantrum, just compliance. That was the moment I understood what true authority feels like. Not control, not dominance. Clarity. Every policy I rewrote, every approval chain I simplified, every meeting I declined, it wasn't for applause. It was to remove friction from the people who actually worked. The ones who didn't care about titles, just progress. I held no official role, still no title. But when Warren presented our new operational framework to the board, he said one sentence that stuck. All of this was built on Susan's process integrity. Process integrity. Not visionary, not disruptor, just someone who told the truth and kept telling it until the machine listened. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. Not because the fire was out, because I knew exactly where the fire exits were and who still carried matches. The final board meeting of the quarter was held in the same room where Gregory's empire had quietly combusted 6 weeks earlier. Same chairs, same light fixtures, same water pitchers sweating condensation onto mahogany like the table itself remembered what happened. But everything else, different. For one thing, Warren sat 3 seats down instead of at the head. Voluntarily, said he preferred observation. The people doing the real work should drive the conversation, he explained. The room was quieter now, more surgical. Fewer buzzwords. No PowerPoint confetti, just decision makers who had finally stopped pretending they understood the gears turning beneath their empire. The chairman opened the meeting with no preamble, no long-winded market positioning, just a sentence that landed like a dropped gavel. We owe our survival to one person. Silence. Then he gestured to me. I didn't rise quickly. I didn't clear my throat or smile or soften the edges of the moment. I simply stood, walked to the center of the room, placed a fresh black binder on the table in front of them. The cover read, Sustainability Through Accountability, a ground-level reconstruction proposal. Author, Susan Rains. No ego, no logo, no color-coded executive summaries. Just a table of contents, a year-long roadmap, and the names of 42 employees I trusted to rebuild the company, not because of resumes or degrees, but because I'd seen them do the work in the shadows. I didn't give a speech. I didn't have to. The binder was the speech. Pages upon pages of clean, blunt recommendations. Decentralize approvals, dissolve vanity departments, reallocate budget to support and infra, Install a transparent audit pipeline for all vendor contracts. No jargon, no soft landings. Just what needed doing. I slid it toward the chairman. He opened it and nodded slowly, like he already knew what it said. No one asked about Gregory. No one said his name. It wasn't erasure, it was evolution. The organism had shed him like a dead cell and moved on. I turned and walked back toward my seat, except it wasn't my usual chair. Without a word, Warren stood and stepped aside. The chair at the head of the table, Gregory's old throne of hollow charisma, was empty. Everyone watched. I paused for beat, not out of hesitation, out of ritual. Then I sat. No nods, no applause, no congratulations. Just the quiet, collective acknowledgement that the person holding the seat belonged in it, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it when no one was watching. The chairman smiled faintly, then turned to the board. Any objections? None came. We proceeded, line by line, department by department. My plan, page by page, becoming policy. At one point, someone offered a suggestion about the terminology in Section 3. I listened, took it under consideration, adjusted the language slightly, because real leadership isn't about being right, it's about being useful. The meeting ended on time, efficient, productive, like a company that remembered it was supposed to be a company, not a LinkedIn influencer experiment. As the directors packed their notes, a voice floated up from the far end of the table. Quiet, surprised, maybe even a little awestruck. One of the junior staffers, Sarah, I think. New, sharp, the kind who observes everything and says nothing. She didn't just go over his head, she whispered to no one in particular. She went beyond it. I didn't react, because I wasn't listening for approval anymore. I was listening for results. And for the first time in a long, long time, I heard them. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.